So Elmo, 40 pounds something.
Yeah.
You got Doberman. I saw Blackmouth Cur. I saw German Shepherd.
Yeah, we don't know what he is. Like I said, well, not German Shepherd. The forums did say that he was like maybe, oh, hello, come here. Yeah. I'll show you him.
Sure, let's take a look.
I'm so sorry about the mess in my apartment.
Don't worry about it.
Especially because this is recorded.
Bye.
Elmo, come here. Say hi. Oh.
I see. Oh, okay.
Elmo, sit. Good boy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I could see the Dobie colors a bit. Maybe some hound.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a cute dog though.
Thank you. I mean, that's kind of what got him adopted.
Sure.
He's got a lot of personality too.
Sure. All right. And then you're struggling with, was it dog reactivity? Like you said, fear-based dog reactivity or something?
Yeah, he's got a couple of types of reactivity. I think he's anxious, but he has fear reactivity to dogs. He sometimes has fear reactivity to human men. And I don't know if that's because I get kind of scared of human men on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And he has fear reactivity to loud noises. So like if I'm walking him in a garbage truck or a really loud car comes by, he will start pulling on the leash and barking. And once or twice, he's almost dragged me into the street because I think I mentioned in that form, like despite the fact he's 40 pounds,
yeah,
he's really strong.
Yeah, he's got more leverage because since he's lower to the ground.
Oh, that way?
Yeah. Well, and then your center of gravity at your hips.
Yeah.
So if you're holding him up here, this happens, right? So in training, I show you how to utilize your leash and stuff to give you much more leverage physically. But also, do you walk him on a harness or what kind of collar is he on?
He's walked on a harness, but the harness clips from the top, not the front.
Okay, so that gives him more power.
Yeah. And I've tried clipping it to the front, and he's just so used to having it on the top that if I do it from the front, he gets really weird and just doesn't understand why the rope is in front of him now.
Okay. The reactivity towards men, is that like men on the street? Is that like when a friend comes over and it happens to be a guy?
It's both, and it's really odd because it's not, how do I put this? It's not super uniform. So like he barks at men on the street, he'll bark at men that come to my house, but for example, I don't know if it's a size thing or what it is, but for example, I had a friend from Philadelphia come to visit me and he's kind of a smaller guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's not very big, he's not very tall, he's about my height. And I think he might even be thinner than me and my dog was totally fine with him.
Mm.
But sometimes like especially with bigger people, Elmo will just be like, absolutely no way am I okay with this person. Bark, 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 bark. Yeah. And there was an incident once where I was walking him and he saw this older gentleman who wasn't big, and then he was elderly and not very big, and Elmo just lost it and started barking at him.
Okay.
I don't know what happened there too, so.
Was the gentleman like with the cane? Was he walking funny? Was he talking to Elmo?
No, none of those things. He was just an old guy walking around. He might have been shuffling a little, but
okay.
I don't think that qualifies as funny walking, does it?
Sure. Okay. Does Elmo have any dog friends?
No. So I don't know if I put this in the form, but when I and my ex adopted Elmo, we were sitting around waiting to fill out the forms at Paws, And this lady came up to us and she's like, you can never have another dog with this dog. This dog will never be friends with other dogs. This dog will not be able to be in a family with other dogs. And we were just like, who is this? And then she told us like she was the trainer at Paws.
Sure.
So.
And yeah, I'm taking notes here, so I'll fill you in more on that stuff later. But that's pretty much how Paws operates. So I'm not surprised by it.
Okay.
So, so we got fear-based reactivity towards men, dogs, and then that is loud noises. So like, let's say you're walking with him on a leash, and one of those loud noises happens. Does he start barking, or does he like flip and like try to run away?
Both. So I think his initial. Sorry, there's a garbage truck showing up.
I can hear you.
And see, Elmo was fine there, so I guess he's used to garbage trucks right now. But if we're on the street, he'll behave very weirdly. He'll pull on the leash, he'll like pull away as if he's running away, and then he'll charge at it and bark at it. And then he'll run back.
Yeah.
It's as if he can't make up his mind if he wants to run away or if he wants to confront it.
Yeah, that's fear for sure. And then I like how you described it. You said like dragon ed or dragoned or like stuff. So, but he doesn't destroy it. He just like gathers everything.
Yeah, I mean, when we first adopted him, he had a real problem of like when we would leave the house, he would destroy our stuff. Okay. He does it a lot less now, and now he just sort of collects his stuff, and not just his stuff, he'll collect my stuff and just sit on it, which I think is an improvement over him destroying my stuff.
Yeah. So was he ever kennel trained?
You mean crate trained?
Correct.
Not on purpose.
Okay. How does that
work? We adopted him, we got a crate, and like being in a crate was agony for him very clearly. He'd bark and stuff. So then we realized like, oh, if we give him a Kong toy with the crate, he doesn't bark as much and he seems a lot happier. And then over time, because I kept saying the word crate and then giving him the treat in the crate, he learned that if I said the word crate, he needed to go into the crate. Mm-hmm. And he was really happy to do so. Mm-hmm. And he seemed a lot chiller being in the crate. I don't currently have a crate for him because of a really unfortunate incident that happened. Basically, he was sick, mm-hmm. and I asked my ex, oh, can you take the dog to the vet? Like, I'm really worried about him. He's woken us up 2 nights in a row, multiple times throughout the night because he's had to go outside to poop because he has diarrhea. Sure. And my ex was just like, no, it's fine. Just put him in the crate. It'll be fine. By the time I got home from work,
sorry.
And I need to clarify by saying my ex was a student at the time, so they had a lot more flexibility in their schedule than I did.
Sure.
But anyway, when I came back from work, the dog had broken out of its crate and we had to throw out the crate, and I still haven't bought a new one.
Okay.
Yeah, accidentally I crate trained the dog, long story short.
And is this why, so like when Elmo was destroying stuff in the beginning, this was pre-crate or post-crate?
Pre-crate.
Okay. Is that what kind of sparked we should get a crate?
Yeah, I'm the one who said we should get a crate.
Okay.
I think part of the differing opinions between me and my ex believed dog training was kind of almost fascist-like.
I read.
I think one of the main differences is that my ex grew up with cats, and while I personally never owned a dog because my family traveled too much, everyone else in my family had dogs. So I'm just like, crates and training are necessary, and the dog will appreciate it in the long term.
Correct. Anything else that I should know about Mr. Elmo here?
Mr. Elmo. As a joke, I sometimes refer to him as Don Elmo.
I'll make sure to make a note of that. Okay, so how you feeling?
About anything in particular, or
Just in general.
I'm feeling, this is gonna sound really bizarre, but I'm feeling really grateful that that you were willing to like have the consultation with me, and I feel really optimistic that this is going to be good for him and for me, because I do care a lot about him, and I'm just worried that between everything that's been going on, he's just felt really insecure and anxious, and I want to be a better dog owner, and I want to make my life easier, but also make his life easier.
Correct. Yeah, it works both ways.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason why I ask is just I can kind of see. I feel like there's a bit going on, right? So, and I try to be, how do you say, empathetic, or I try to be. I see these things. So like when I work with, like we had a client that started, what's today, Tuesday. She started on Sunday. She just moved from to Chicago, from Texas, I believe it was, which was quieter. And her dog is dog reactive, but in Texas, there's much more space.
Yeah.
Keep distance. And now she's in Ukrainian village, and she's like, I see like 30 dogs every walk. So her life is hell right now. And she was obviously stressed and anxious. And she proposed a board and train, and I told her, as much as I'd make more money, you want to do this yourself.
Yeah.
So she just had her first class, and it was a very stressful first class, and it's on YouTube now. And you'll just see me kind of stop and say, like, how you doing? How you feeling? You're doing great. Things like that, just to help build the confidence. Because it is very important, when we cover these things, because there's a very, large chunk of this is emotional.
Yeah.
And then not even like the person can have everything going great in their life, but their dog, it's a very emotional connection. And when we tackle difficult subjects with the dog in addressing behavior, like these are things that are part of the process that I have to make sure that like I check in on the owner, make sure they're doing well. Otherwise, it becomes overwhelming, and then they become discouraged.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of good information on Elmo. And I'm sorry, what's his age again?
He'll be 4 in November, I want to say.
Okay, and you've had him for how long?
I adopted him in 2017.
So he was about a year.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of this stuff, I think you're in terms of like the fear-based stuff. I'm picking up fear, nervousness, more nervousness than fear.
From Elmo?
Yeah. From like how you like how dogs respond to things. So fear, nervousness, and anxiety look very similar, but they have little differences.
Okay.
So the shuffling old man, that's a nervous response. The kind of weariness or wariness around certain men is I can't say, I'm not saying it can be fear based, but it's more so nervousness from what I pick up, because of men tend to give off a more threatening presence.
Yeah, I agree.
So when he met the smaller gentleman that was like your size, and he didn't really care, I'm like, because he's not giving the same level of presence that maybe a taller gentleman would, right? Mm-hmm. And it's nothing good or bad. It's just really how it is, So like for me, if I'm 5'8", so if I saw a guy that was around my size, like I wouldn't be scared of him. Like I think I could take him. But if I saw a guy that was like 7 foot, I don't think I'm gonna be able to win this fight, right?
Yeah.
And same thing, for women, a smaller male, they most likely feel more confident that they can handle, as opposed to a larger male, right? So same thing for the dogs. when they see these things, you know, they're very, how would you say, aware of energy and presence. Okay, how you present yourself and all that stuff. Which was why I was asking, did the old man start talking to him or in a high pitched voice or anything? Because that tends to set off nervous energy. Okay.
Yeah, I've noticed that like when men whistle at Elmo, he tends to like not like it.
Yeah. So, and it's not so much like being whistled at. It's really just the energy it projects. You know, like come here, buddy, like that kind of thing. Nervous energy doesn't like that. So, like a nervous dog. Let's say you have a friend come over and maybe he barks in the beginning, and then everything calms down. He settles, and then the person stands up, says something really loudly, starts laughing or anything like where the energy just shifts. The dogs will trigger, and they'll start barking again. Okay, so that's a nervous response. Fearful dogs, when they kick into that emotional state, they tend to stay stuck. So when you said when he hears a loud noise, he can't make up his mind. He'll like run away from it, but then he'll charge it, but then run away from it.
Mm-hmm.
That's very typical fear-based behavior.
Okay.
Okay, so he's a mixture. It's not uncommon, you know, like
Hey, hey. I don't know what's happening right now. Elmo, come here. Come here. You can't just whine and look at me and not come here. Come here. Okay.
did he hear something outside the door maybe?
Probably.
Okay.
There's
What's he doing now?
He's just standing staring at me.
Okay, is his tail moving?
Is your tail moving? Yeah, it's wagging.
Yeah, something caught his ear. He's stimulated. So,
Um, I was gonna say, like, he's gotten this new behavior ever since we moved, and it concerns me a little bit.
okay.
And I think it's stemming from the fact I haven't bought a new crate yet, but he crawls under my bed
Okay.
and then won't come out. Like, he won't come out if I call him, he won't come out if I have treats or if I hold any of his toys. He just stays under the bed.
Yeah. How long have you been at the new place?
I moved the 18th of this month.
Okay. So it typically takes dogs 2 weeks to a month to settle into a new environment. And there's probably some kind of discomfort either with the area. Did you move to a busier area of Chicago or like same?
Busier. I moved from Hyde Park to Logan Square.
Yeah, yeah. So for some dogs, they can be sensitive, even though Logan Square isn't like Lakeview, it is busier than Hyde Park, depending on where you live in Hyde Park, because there's some parts of Hyde Park that are crazy busy. But so like I have a client that just moved, I think from Michigan. They moved from Michigan, and it's an anxious, nervous pit bull. And they just moved to downtown Chicago, which is crazy busy, and the dog's like even crazier in terms of reactivity now. And it's all because now there's a lot more energy and movement and stuff like that. So I've seen that before in another case a few years ago where the lady moved from a quiet place to downtown Chicago and the dog started hiding underneath the bed as a means of just kind of, because we're kind of used to all this stuff, right? The noises and all that and everything. Dogs are really sensitive to it. So especially when you have a more nervous, anxious, or fear-based dog, you're going to see things like that. What I would suggest is if you can block off under the bed with boxes or whatever you can, okay? Because the more he goes underneath there, it may possibly get better through exposure. But essentially by him going under there, he's practicing this habit of, you know, he's saying, I don't like this area, it's too busy, so I'm gonna hide from it, right? And if you ignore it, potentially it just becomes a habit and it just becomes more and more. And then he may potentially become defensive. Okay. Because when you want to get him out, he's like, no, I don't want to come out. Right. Because he's so used to hiding underneath there. It's not a guarantee. It's just a possibility. The best approach is always to prevent things. So, you know, just block it off. So then he'll try to get under there. He'll attempt several times. He'll finally give it up. And then you're essentially forcing him to stay out in the social space. And then that's how he gets over it over time.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions about that?
No, I was kind of thinking the same thing because I was just like, he's going to learn to associate the two things together.
Right.
And I don't want
Um,
that.
so before reaching out, did you do any research on me and my company?
I watched a couple of your training videos. I know you use e-collars and choke collars, or prong collars, sorry. I'm used to, people in my family have called them choke collars, so that's what I call them. Yeah, so I know that that's part of your training technique, which I have mixed feelings about because I'm sure like it gets results. And I did work with a trainer briefly who was only treat based,
Mhm.
which is fine because Elmo is very treat reactive. But what I also noticed is that he's smart enough to know that when I don't have a treat, he doesn't want to do the thing.
Sure.
So I'm open to trying this other approach. I don't know if I mentioned, I did buy, like, I feel really bad admitting this. I bought a cheapo bark collar that's meant to give him an electric shock when he barks. And he just becomes super, like the few times I've used it, he becomes super depressed. He
Sure.
just goes,
Yeah, I know
bond. I'm just like, oh, now I feel bad.
yeah.
It's also so cheap that sometimes if I touch it, it'll shock him, and then he'll just be like,
Sure. Okay. And
sorry.
we'll discuss that. I'll go over that for you. Okay. So, regardless of whether you use positive reinforcement or positive punishment, okay. So when we talk about positive reinforcement, people usually think good, and or how do you say, yeah, like it's a good thing, which it is, but positive means to add.
Right.
Okay? The negative means to subtract. In the dog training world, it doesn't necessarily mean good and bad.
Yeah.
So, regardless of whatever method you use, whether it's treats based, prong collar, gentle leader, or e-collar, whenever you remove the motivator, performance will always dip. Okay, that's just the way things are.
Right.
And part of this reason is, think of Elmo as a 3 to 4 year old child, but forever.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 to 4 year old child, you have to tell what to do. Go get dressed, go eat your food, things like that, right? And at no point would we ever expect that 3 to 4 year old child to get a job and like support themselves. Okay.
That is correct.
That happens over time because we as humans do mature and we get older, right? We develop skills, all that stuff. Dogs, however, do not. And the reason why, regardless of the training method that you use, and this isn't like, I don't want you to think he's always wearing the collar. It's
Right.
when you need it. Okay. So I don't like the term dog training because dog training implies at some point everything is done. So, right. So for humans, if you have a job and they're like, hey, we're going to give you a promotion and we're going to train you for it, they would train you and then eventually you would learn that skill and then you could just apply it at whim. Dogs don't do that. Dogs don't think like, oh, you taught me to like not be reactive and you taught me to like walk nicely and you taught me to sit and all this stuff and be polite. Okay, I'm going to do that now. Okay? Dogs are very much self-serving. They're opportunistic and humans are opportunistic as well. So the most common analogy that I use is driving. Do you drive? Or can you?
This might actually be relevant. I can drive. I'm scared shitless of driving.
Okay.
Ergo, I'm a bad driver.
Okay. So for most people, on the expressway, almost nobody goes the speed limit.
Right. I've noticed that.
Because, how do you say, there's no reinforcer. Unless there's a cop present or you see a squad car sitting on the side, people are aware that they can get away with speeding to a degree with no repercussions. Okay.
That makes sense.
Dogs are the same way. So I look at the e-collar as a cop on a collar. So when Elmo's wearing it, he knows he needs to behave himself because you have means to reinforce. But when he doesn't have it on, he's going to know that he can get away with more stuff. Okay. So that's why I always tell people it's on when you need it. So if in the home Elmo's a good dog, then you don't need it. But when you walk him, you know, because of the reactivity towards dogs, men, and loud noises, you'd want to have it.
Right.
Okay? Now, through the course of training, the presence of the collar will settle Elmo more. So I don't want you to think that you're always having to, like, quote unquote zap him. It's just like, let's say Elmo's doing great, and then one day someone sets up a random firework that blows up right next to you, right? And he gets spooked out of nowhere. You now have the means of getting him back under control.
Yeah. That's actually something I wanted to mention is like, I don't know if you've noticed, but there are fireworks almost every night for
Yeah.
several weeks.
Yes.
And it's been hell for my dog. Like I will try to walk him, and if I don't walk him early enough in the day and he hears a firework, he will literally drag me home and just start pawing at the door crying.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he's already learned where home is, honestly, but
Dogs are very quick about that stuff. So the e-collar, of course, will give you a much better handle on that. But those are the things that we want to account for, is that life isn't black and white. There's going to be a lot of variables.
yeah.
The e-collar allows you to recover from those variables should they happen. Let me think here. When it comes to your bar collar and his response to it, part of it is because it's acting as a punisher.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it's, don't feel bad about it. It's not, you're not being mean or anything like that. Because obviously, like, I think you mentioned that your place has strict noise rules or something.
Yeah.
So it's either lose your dog or lose the apartment, right?
Yeah.
So the bar collar, because its only association with it is punishment based, and it's only when it's being used, that's why you're getting that shutdown behavior. Okay. And also, you know, the fact that with you just simply touching it and it going off is not good. Okay.
No, it's really bad.
So, and if you want to get a better one that doesn't do that, I can recommend one to you. But you know, it is what it is. Like, you're not the first person, you're not the last person. They're perfectly safe to use, but I do always recommend that people do get a quality one, because things like that can happen. Or they crap out after a month or so because they're so cheaply made. So then you end up buying one like every month or whatever. Whereas if you buy a professional level e-collar, you get one that will last you for years. Questions so far?
No. I did want to comment that he's actually gotten a lot quieter now in the new apartment. Except this morning, for some reason, he woke me up at 5:30 a.m.
Sure.
to beg for pets. And
Sure.
like, and I think I mentioned this in the forum, like sometimes I feel like he's bossing me around with his barking. And that's what happened this morning. He like woke up, was crying and whining. I pet him, he'd stop. Which I know I shouldn't do, because he's learning that if he behaves this way, he gets pets, and that's ultimately what he wants. And in my groggy state, I was like, I'm not going to pet you because I don't want you to learn that it's okay to wake me up at 5:30 a.m. for pets. And he just started barking at me, and I was like,
Right. So he's bullying you to a degree. Bullying, it doesn't necessarily mean always negative, like in human terminology, but
right.
more so he's just bossing you around.
Yeah.
Okay. And that goes hand in hand with the reactivity. So part of the process is really structure and discipline. Teaching Elmo what he's supposed to do, right? And it's kind of like a mother-son relationship as opposed to a friend-friend relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so most people get dogs for companionship.
Right.
And with some cases, like, you can spoil the dog and nothing bad happens, right? In other cases, you spoil the dog and then the dog develops behavior issues.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just that dog's genetic code responds to that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm not saying that we would remove affection and stuff like that and you could never pet your dog, but we do want to be mindful of when we do pet them, because you could be undermining yourself and then you're just prolonging your process. Okay.
Yeah.
So your case is pretty standard stuff for
Oh,
me.
thank God.
I deal with this stuff all the time. Okay. Um, and I solely use e-collar for puppies starting at 6 months and up,
Mm-hmm.
and adult dogs, because it's effective, it's efficient, it's very simple to use for the owner. You get off-leash reliability, so should Elmo ever get off-leash, you still have control. And I don't have to touch the dog.
Right.
Because now with COVID, it's changed a lot of things, and we've rebuilt our clientele base solely through e-collar because I don't have to touch the dog,
That
and
makes sense.
people are getting the results. And that's why we film everything. One, because it's a lot of information. Okay, I've been doing this for 10 years. Like it's like the back of my hand when I see this stuff. But for you, it's going to be a lot. So if you forget anything, you can always go back and refer to your own video and go, oh, now I remember, and you go back and you apply it. If you're struggling with something and maybe we don't see it during the training session, I'll go, hey, I got another case just like yours. Watch, 15 minutes to 20 minutes in, and you'll understand what we're trying to get done. So now you have a visual. So it's kind of like a information database for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So e-collar is perfectly safe to use. When you use a professional level brand, it's way different than your bark collar. Okay. Have you ever been to a chiropractor or a physical therapist?
I have not.
In that, have you ever seen those commercials where they have like the something on the stomach and it's like working the abs, and it'll say like work out while you sit on the couch or something?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what's called a TENS unit. Okay. So it's electric, but not electricity is how I explain it. And there's a slight current that causes the muscles to move. Okay, and that's what exercises the muscles.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same technology for the e-collar. Okay, it's a miniaturized TENS unit. So if you went to a chiropractor and you said,
Okay.
excuse me?
No, I was just saying, oh, okay, that makes sense. That means it's pretty harmless.
Correct. So if you go to a chiropractor and let's say you have a lot of your lower back is very stiff in terms of the muscles,
Mm-hmm.
they would put this machine on your back and they would turn it on and it would start contracting your muscles to help relax them and to help ease pain. And they gradually dial the contractions up. It's actually how they replicate labor contractions in men.
Oh.
Yeah, but obviously labor contractions are far more powerful than a standard muscle contraction.
Right.
But it's the same technology. So with e-collar, it's a muscle contraction, and we use it to shape everything that we want. Okay. So with a case like Elmo here, all the reactivity stuff that he struggles with on leash, we would address the first day. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We would start with the exercise that should ideally address those issues, and then we play it by ear each class. So when I teach heel, which is the leash walking command,
Right.
my level of heel is very strict. If I take one step, the dog takes one step. If I take 5 steps, the dog takes 5 steps. When I stop, the dog automatically sits. Okay. This is with no leash tension, completely stuck leash. I don't care what the environment is. I don't care if there's dogs walking by, bikes, bicyclists, men, the ice cream man, all that stuff. I want that level of attention. Okay. How it affects the reactivity is Elmo's like nervousness or fear outside in certain elements doesn't allow him to relax.
Right.
So he's in a constant state of tension.
I know exactly what that feels like because I'm pretty sure I do that too.
Sure. So when we do the discipline and we teach them, hey, bud, don't worry about any of that. Worry about me.
Mm-hmm.
It settles the nerves. Okay. And it gives them something to look to as opposed to thinking everything is a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that should dial down his stress levels. It's that and partially the concept of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
So I really don't care about obedience in the sense of I have control when I need it, But what I care about when it comes to these behavior cases is the discipline that comes behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So so if Elmo did something that another dog, let's say Elmo was like, friendly and all that stuff, and he had a dog friend and he was annoying that dog, how do you think that dog would correct Elmo?
By setting boundaries via like baring teeth and barking.
And what
Like,
else?
I guess I'm trying to think of how to describe it. I can't because I can only think in visually. Like if I were a dog and this dog was bugging me, I'd just be like, arr, arr,
Sure.
get away from me, stop the behavior, and if you don't, then I will retaliate.
By how?
By like physical force. It's kind of like what younger siblings do with each other, right?
By physicality. By
Yeah. Yeah.
So dogs are physical animals. Humans are physical animals too.
Yeah.
But we have language, right? So we can usually resolve some things via a conversation, but sometimes those conversations get heated.
Yeah.
And it becomes a physical confrontation until someone's on the ground, right? It's just the way of the world. So that's Elmo's, how do you say, that's his nature. Even though he's a softer personality type, physicality toughens up dogs. Okay. I was raised old school. I was spanked. And I feel like it's toughened me up throughout life. Like as I went through things, I've slowly been able to, as I matured, been able to handle more and more stressful things because being disciplined was stressful.
Yeah.
Right. But it allowed me when I got older and I started doing things on my own, when problems would pop up, it wasn't that bad. Like I'd already kind of dealt with stress before. And I remember I had an ex-girlfriend who was very soft-spoken, and we only ever had like one argument. Okay. And it's because I was very busy and I asked her to make reservations for us at a restaurant. And I was like, hey, I'm real busy. Could you please do this? And she's like, I can't. And I was like, please, it's super simple. Just give them a call, set the reservation, 7:00 at the earliest. And she's like, I can't. I'm really anxious about it. And I just had firmed my tone. I didn't yell. It just got firm.
Right.
And she shuddered. I could hear it, and I felt so bad. And then later on, I apologized. I'm like, I'm sorry. And then I was like, did your parents ever spank you or anything? And she's like, no, all they ever had to do was raise her voice. She was such a soft personality that she didn't need more than that.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of being able to deal with things in that context, I saw it because I simply just got firm, come on, just call the restaurant. And then she couldn't handle it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for dogs, when we get these feared, nervous, anxious dogs, people tend to stay away from physical because they don't want to make the dog make the dog worse.
Mm-hmm.
But when physicality is applied correctly, it makes the dog better.
That makes sense.
Physicality is only harmful when there's negative energy attached. No, stupid dog, stop it, shut up, right? That. But if I just correct the dog and I'm completely neutral, the dog will be like, what? Right? And they might shake for a little bit, and then I'm pretend like nothing happened. And the dog's like, oh, okay, I overreacted, my bad. They toughen up, just like with people, right? So it's not so much the tool, it's how you apply the tool.
Right.
And we apply it the same way we'd apply it to a human. We start low, we work our way up, okay? And Elmo tells me what's too much and what's too little, okay? And despite the fact that he may have a soft personality, it may be high, okay? Because he's meant for physical. So people, when they get a soft personality, they think, oh, you're just going to be super low on the collar. It's going to be easy. And the dog's super tough, right? Because they're meant to bite each other. Right. So there's no guarantee of how it works, but that's why we start low and we work our way up. So the first thing I would do is teach the leash walking exercise, okay? I'd coach you through it, if we're doing in person, and then I give you your homework. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, every time you walk them, do this and do this. And when you see dogs, do this. A week goes by. I see the next week how to go. Jesse was great. He's not being reactive towards men. He wasn't reactive towards dogs, but he's still kind of spooky when there's loud noises. And I go, makes sense, because loud noises come out of nowhere.
Right.
Whereas seeing a dog or seeing a person gradually approaching is a gradual thing and not such a sudden, in most cases, unless you turn a corner, right? And I go, okay, cool. What we're gonna do is we're gonna tweak a few things. We're gonna teach this, and then I'll see you in a week. Come back the next week. How'd it go? Jesse's still struggling with the loud noises, and I go, okay. Are you exposing him to busier streets? No, I'm keeping him in the neighborhood. Let's start exposing him to busier streets on a daily basis, because now we got to desensitize.
Right.
And then we're just building off of each week. So what dictates how we progress is how you and Elmo progress. Okay. But the foundation in almost every case is always a leash walking exercise. So that's why if you watch my videos, lesson 1 is like always heel. Okay, reactivity, general disobedience, overstimulated dog, nervous dog, all that stuff, it's always heel. Okay, and it's because it's simple for the dog to learn, simple for the owner to learn. It allows you to start practicing structure outside where things are happening to help them settle. Because what happens is when you start to get the brain to pacify, and like let's say he sees a male, and I had a dog, her name was Zyla. They travel from Prospect Heights to Chicago to work with me. And the dog was super nervous of everything. And the first time I met her, she would like book it to the other side if you try to walk past her. I saw her last weekend, these past 2 weekends, because now she's moving to Lincoln Park. And she brought her dog. And she was like 70, 80% better. She wasn't hiding from people. Like you saw a little bit of nervousness, but this is Oz Park, which is busy. Nothing compared to Prospect Heights. And I was like, man, that is such a huge change from when I first saw you. But it was because of the discipline and structure that allowed to just kind of slow her down a bit and not get so overly worked up on what was going on in the environment.
Right.
So that's how we would address the heel. I mean, not the heel, the reactivity, probably about 2 to 3 classes. It sounds like you're not really dealing with separation anxiety anymore with him.
I mean, I've also been in quarantine, so
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. Do you try to get out at all with him?
Get out at all with him?
Like leave him home and just maybe go for a walk by yourself or anything?
I have done that in the past. Like the first time I went away for a really long time, and by long time I mean maybe like 3 hours, he did bark. But I started doing it with a little bit more frequency, so now he doesn't bark. And again, like I've learned that if I give him the Kong toy before I leave, he's much more okay with me leaving.
Okay. What's the longest you've been able to go out for?
Without Elmo?
Yes.
Since quarantine or before?
Yes.
Since. This weekend I was away from Elmo for like 8 hours, I want to say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so a full work day. And I think I didn't get any calls, so I'm guessing he didn't bark. Or if he did, no one snitched on me.
I was gonna say, have you let your neighbors know? Like, oh, hey, I have a dog. We just moved in. Please let me know if you hear anything.
No, I don't even know who my neighbors are.
Okay. So one thing I'd recommend, and I've been doing this for all my like puppies and stuff, is telling people, if you have a crate, to force isolation from your dog in the sense that like, even though you're home, he's in the kennel. And I would replicate what life would look like. So if you would work a standard 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, from 9 to 5, Elmo's crated. And if you'd have a dog walker come midday, like you could walk him midday, that's fine. But you're acclimating him to the fact of, hey, yeah, I'm home, but you're not always going to be next to me, right? Which may pose a problem because then the dog's barking like, hey, you're right there, just let me out. Which we would correct that. And you're priming him for when quarantine or whenever life goes back to normal, and you have to leave again, that it's not such a big shock to the system. He's already used to that 9 to 5 uncrated. Now the only difference is you're gone.
Right.
I have no problem with you incorporating that bar collar. In the meantime, like like I'd rather you be proactive about things than wait for complaints because that's already a strike against you, so to speak.
Yeah.
And if your place has strict like noise rules, like that's the last thing that you want. So separation anxiety, I don't think it's gonna be a problem because you did make progress even previously. So I think that's gonna be fine. And uh, if you could have what you wanted with Elmo, okay, and I don't want you to limit yourself, what would that look like?
You mean in an ideal world, how would Elmo behave? Like,
Yeah, like is it like, man, I'd like to take Elmo with me to a restaurant patio. I'd like to go hiking with him. I'd like to see if he can make dog friends. I'd like to,
okay.
bring like new places, not worry about him getting scared and running away.
Yeah, so I would love to go hiking with Elmo. As it stands, I don't think I could because I don't think he'd come back.
Sure.
And I think he'd be a dumbass and probably sniff at something he shouldn't sniff at
Sure.
and get hurt. I would love for him to have doggy friends. Like, I would love to not have to, I would love to, when I go on vacation, I would love to not have to get the more expensive package of having my dog isolated, because you can't be with other dogs. I would love to take him to a dog park and have friends who have dogs, like have us interact our dogs together without me worrying like, is my dog going to hurt their dog? Is he going to cause a scene? And I would love for him to just feel more confident. I would also love for him to stop barking at me when I don't do exactly what he wants. But I think that's more of a me issue than a him issue.
It could be addressed though.
Because, as you mentioned, it's funny you say bullying because that's the terminology. One of my grandmothers was a dog breeder, and that's the term she always uses. She's like, oh, that dog is the bully of the group. She doesn't use the alpha male stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, with the dominance theory, I know it and it is true, but the problem is how people perceive it.
yeah.
That's why I don't like using words like dominant and all that stuff, because people misconstrue it.
Yeah.
But yeah, bullying, it's like with the longer I've done dog training, the more I've learned that we're not very different.
Yeah, probably not.
We're animals, we get anxious, they get anxious. They get nervous, we get nervous. They get scared, we get scared. They get aggressive, we get aggressive. The difference is we have complex languages. We can see past, present, future, and we have an imagination,
Mm-hmm.
right? And dogs are present, but they have the same emotional responses. But the problem is with dogs is since they are animals that handle things with teeth, and humans handle things with fists for the most part. An aggressive dog or a dog that goes into aggression as opposed to a human that goes into aggression would cause different levels of damage.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the big thing. So all this stuff, the only one that would be, how would I say, not so much the most realistic one.
Yeah.
Would be the dog park one.
Yeah. That's what I figured.
Because one, I don't like dog parks anyways, because there's so many variables. But like, let's say Elmo, like let's say you have friends and they have dogs, and you'd like to see if Elmo could be friends with those dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I can work with you to show you. I show you an exercise, and you keep repeating it with a particular dog.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's like building a friendship. The expectation nowadays is is that all dogs love everyone and everything. Like that's like the mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not, right? I don't like everybody that I meet, and I'm sure not everybody that meets me likes me, right? It's not realistic. But we're civilized, and like I don't just start like being a jerk to someone I don't like. I just remove myself or avoid situations where that person's going to be present or distance myself, right? Dogs aren't like that. If they don't like something, they confront it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so let's say he's good with certain energies, but then not other types. And when you go to a dog park, you're going to get all types of energies.
Right.
That if there's the ones that he doesn't like, there's going to be issues. And with people, like I have guys that I've known for, man, I'm 33, like half my life, like 16 years. Like I trust them with my life. Like I've known them forever, like my brothers. But if I just made a new friend today, I wouldn't treat them or give them the same comfort that I have with all these other guys. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. We'd establish that over time. So it's the same thing for dogs. I don't expect them to like the dog right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are people that are social butterflies that make friends no problem. And there's the same thing for dogs, but then there's other people that are a bit more reserved and they might have a small cluster of friends, or they take longer to befriend. Same thing for dogs.
Yeah.
So I would show you, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't, right? Like I can't make them be friendly. Just like someone can't make you like something, they can't be forced to like something. You have to make that decision. Mm-hmm. Same thing for Elmo, okay? But it's definitely a lot more realistic to have a small cluster of dog friends that he would see on a regular basis in a calmer setting, you know? Is he being a troublemaker?
He's eating something and he's in the kitchen, which is never good. What were you eating? Okay, well, I don't know. He clearly swallowed it. So
yeah, so that socialization, that can be a class or so. If you don't have anybody in the area that can help you with the dog, we can either ask a client that wants to socialize their dog, or we'll bring one of our own. And then we can work on recall, which would allow you to get him to come back despite whatever he's doing, whether he's smelling grass or, you know, trying to eat goose poop or something like that, okay? So what dictates the cost and the length of time is really how much you're trying to get done. Mm-hmm. You have 3 choices here. I have a 6, 9, and 12-week course, and Maria would reiterate all this stuff to you. So it's 1 lesson a week for an hour. And we've been meeting at Oz Park because everything is there. Dogs, people, strollers, bikes, you know, you name it, it's there. So it's a great distraction-heavy environment to work in, so that if you can make your dog listen there, technically your dog should be able to listen in any environment. With the 6 week, pretty confident we can cover the leash walking, which would address the reactivity stuff. Mm-hmm. That's usually about 2 classes, and then a class on reactivity stuff if we're still struggling. If you want to do dog socialization, that's typically a class, and then you just have to keep repeating it. And then recall is typically about 2 classes as well. Okay. If you're wanting more control, such as I'd like to take him somewhere and not have to worry about him roaming all over the place, and you want him to be stationary. So if you tell him to like lay down and he doesn't move for 2 hours, 30 minutes, whatever you want, the 9-week program covers duration work. So if you want to go to a restaurant patio and bring him with you, but you don't want him to be a nuisance, you know, you can't just have him be free. You'd want him under control. And then the 12-week program is all that stuff, but we built it to off-leash reliability. So, you know, with the 6 weeks, you'd be able to go hiking with him, but you just would have limited control. With the 12-week, you can do pretty much all the stuff. Everything's off-leash: sit down, stay, come, heel, place. But you do have to practice on a regular basis to get to that level. Everybody progresses differently. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people think, well, at the end of 12 weeks, my dog's gonna be completely trained. I'm like, well, that's yes and no, because if you're not doing the homework, your progress is gonna be different than someone who did the homework every day.
Right.
It also comes down to your comfort. If you don't trust your dog, you know, you're not gonna be comfortable with letting the dog off leash. That's normal.
Yep.
So I had a lady who did 9 classes with me a few years ago, and her dog was dog reactive, and she's like, I would never take this dog off a leash, and I would never expose this dog to other dogs. And then fast forward a year, I have pack walks over in Lakeview where clients come and they have dogs that are reactive, and it's free, and they get to expose their dogs to other dogs and people and all that stuff. And she came to one, and I was like, how are you doing? She's like, great. She's like, you know, Abbott made friends now. He has friends, and I walk him off leash.
Wow.
Yeah. But it just took her longer. because I knew, I remember telling her, I was like, you have the control. I'm like, your dog's really well trained. You did your homework, but she wasn't ready emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I told her, there's no rush. There's no law that says you have to use these things. I'm just letting you know that your dog is capable. And it took her a year before she built that comfort and confidence. Okay. So everybody progresses differently. I do have to push you somewhat so that you make progress.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I really care about the reactivity stuff. Like that's a big thing. Like I know a lot of people get anxious and nervous about the reactivity. It's stressful. So um, you do have to step out your comfort zone at some point to make progress. But the goal here is that when you use the tools and you see how effective they are and how simple it is, it gives you confidence because it's not so technical.
Mm-hmm.
It's very straightforward. So then as you gain more confidence, you're going to do more exposure. Okay. So you could do any one of those programs in terms of, you know, what you're wanting to cover.
Mm-hmm.
When we do like 6-week programs, what I do is I really target the main things, which would be like the reactivity and then the leash walking stuff. And I'd prioritize recall or common cold over socialization because if he gets off leash, you want to know that you can make him come back.
Right.
Okay. Questions so far?
No. Well, I mean, the one question is like costs,
Oh,
but
sure.
you're going to get to that eventually.
Yeah, and Maria, again, we'll reiterate this to you. So 6 week is $825,
Mm-hmm.
and then part of your fee, or not part, all of your fee, $135, would get credited towards the program because you did a video consult.
Mm-hmm.
The 9-week is $1175, and the 12-week is $1550. And what we've also done is, since it's now verbal instruction, is we've comped or added 2 complimentary Zoom sessions to the programs.
Okay.
So if like, because I really want to focus on the in-person stuff that we do in-person stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you have a lot of questions, I'll tell people just save it for the Zoom so we can do the hands-on stuff here.
Okay.
Okay. So then, you know, you can always schedule your Zoom and then have any like, you know, general questions and stuff like that. This way we take advantage of the training at the park. And then in terms of the training collar, for his size, I think you'll be fine with the Dogtra 2300, and we'll send you the model and all that stuff for it. Is he eating something again?
Doing something in the bedroom.
He's a rambunctious one. It runs about 287 with tax. Okay.
Okay.
I've been using these collars for years. It's the best model or the best brand in my opinion.
Okay.
They last a really long time. I've had mine 7-8 years, no issues, other than the batteries do wear out because it's rechargeable lithium battery.
Mm-hmm.
If they wear out after the warranty, you can go online. They're like $20. You order it, you can open it up, put out the old battery, replace it with the new one, and you're good as new. A 3/4 mile range and fully waterproof.
Wow.
So it's an investment, but it's a good investment. If you wanted to have a bit more security
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the behavior and the reactivity, is there's a higher powered collar. And the only reason I suggest it or I bring it up is that when we deal with behavior, uh, it's all about having enough power to shut it down. So if he's really too far gone, um, there's a slight possibility that the 2300 may not have enough power. So the model above that is the Dogtra 3500, and it runs about 352 attacks. I think you'd be fine because he's at 40 pounds, and the one is meant for 70 pounds and under, and the other is meant for 70 pounds and over.
Wow.
But all that means is if you had the higher powered one, we'd
Mm-hmm.
have lower numbers. Okay, but then we'd have more wiggle room in case like he did become super reactive. If we need to go up to shut it down, I'm not too worried about power.
Mm-hmm.
It's personal preference. I think you're going to be fine with the 2300, but it's more so if you just want to have that security and not have to worry about either upgrading or returning the collar and all that stuff, you can get the other model. It's perfectly safe to use. Even though it's meant for 70-pound dogs and over, I've used it on a Chihuahua that was 10 pounds. Yeah, because it's just a lower number.
Oh, yeah, I guess because it's the voltage that matters.
Correct. In regards to when the collar goes away, again, in my book, it doesn't when you need it. So expect that when you walk them, you're using it, but like it's present, but once you've done the training and you've done a good job of doing the training, ideally, you're not having to reinforce all the time. You're not always pressing the button, right? Mm-hmm. It's just there in case you need it. If he's great in the house and all that stuff, or he gets better, you don't need it. For correcting like the bullying behavior in the home, I'd give you other ways of correcting that won't be dependent on the collar. Okay. You don't have to worry about that. I think that's about it. Questions?
No, that's all really clear.
If you'd like to get an idea of how the reactivity would work in terms of how we go about it, I'd suggest watching. There's two dogs named Finn, Finn, and it's on my channel. I posted it up yesterday. Finn lesson 1, and you see a picture. It's his face. He's like a German Shepherd type of dog, mm-hmm. And that's the lady that I said that just moved here, and the dog is super reactive. Mm-hmm. And so there's lots of moments where the dog becomes reactive, and you see us address it. Mm-hmm. So if you want to get a visual of like how it would look, just to kind of prep you, I suggest watching that video. Mm-hmm. And if anything, we may pair in the prong collar as well. That lady's using both the prong and the e-collar to give her the most control. It just comes down to how easy Elmo is to get back under control once he becomes reactive.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I feel like he's generally a wimpy dog, so.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff comes from insecurity, you know, and to build confidence, you have to expose him, and like his outlet right now is what I would categorize as the fight response, like bark, 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 right? Like protesting and going against, like back off. And we want to remove that option and teach him like being reactive is not an option. Deal with the stressor in a healthier way. Mm-hmm. Which is going to be just allowing it to happen. But then that's how the brain, or that's how they develop confidence, because he's like, oh, like that man walking past me wasn't a big deal. Like that was fine, you know? In regards to if this happens to be a concern, security from Elmo, right? Some people are concerned like, well, Jesse, if I stop the reactivity and stuff, what if like something happens and I want my dog to protect me? Right? Mm-hmm. Is most dogs won't protect their owner anyways.
Yeah, I was going to say, wouldn't Elmo just know if I'm in threat and duress to help me?
No.
Oh, never mind.
So, one, partially because of his personality type. He's a wimp. Okay? So, when you understand dog psychology, if a dog comes we had a dog charges actually off leash. Most people pull back. Mm-hmm. I move to the dog, and the dog goes, holy crap, and they run away because they're not expecting it. Okay.
What I was going to say, I'm like, that is very confrontational.
Yes. So you already have an insecure dog. So imagine if that happened, right? Knock on wood, and they confronted him, he'd book it. Okay. Yeah. But most people don't know this. So let's say you control the reactivity, it's gone, it's great, right? But then the concern is, well, what if something happens? He'll still bark. Mm-hmm. He'll still get that. You just won't have protection dog, okay? But he's not a protection dog anyways. That's a trained skill set.
Right.
But when a person has a dog barking at them, most people don't want to confront that because they don't know. They just don't want to get bit.
Right.
And so I don't want to kill security. We do want to control them. But if somebody was like, hey, and like gives like an energy, he will respond to that still because it's out of the normal context of we walk past people, We walk past old men that shuffle. You know, I walk past dogs, you know, things that happen on a regular basis. But obviously, someone throwing confrontation at you is a very different context that it should still set him off.
Right.
And then you just wouldn't address him. You'd let it go. If anything, you say, good dog. Because you're telling him, yes, there's going to be moments where I want you to do this, but there's going to be moments when you don't need to do this. Okay. And as you go about things, it'll make more sense as we go along. Okay. Yeah. Questions?
No. Well, just one quick question. You're not going to force me to go, yes, every time he does a good thing, right?
No.
Okay, great.
We don't do food. I may use food if the dog is struggling, but in most cases, like, we don't use food. And when you watch that video of me with Finn, you'll get a very good, it essentially shows you how I train and how it works, how effective it is, and just like kind of realistic expectations on class 1 and all that stuff. But no, I don't do that.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, well, it was a pleasure. Maria will get in contact with you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and then she'll get you situated, and then we'll take it from there.
Wait, I just thought of a question. Is it a lump sum? Do I pay the full sum for the training sessions up front?
What we do is half down. If you do the 6-week, that one is lump sum, because that's the short program. If you do 9 or 12, it's half down, and then you pay a quarter 2 weeks later, and then another quarter 2 weeks later.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. And it's in the contract, but just so you know, we time it so that the payments would fall before your next session. So like before your 3rd session, you'd already get your invoice for the second invoice or whatever. If you don't pay it, I don't show up.
That makes sense.
Unfortunately, we've had people, it's super rare, but you know, I give people benefit of the doubt, and I'm like, you know, I go, and then they get what they want, and they squeeze in as much as they want within that short 2 to 3 week time frame, and then they don't pay us for the rest of the program. So we've just made it very strict now. You don't pay, I don't show up. Otherwise, no issues.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Anything else?
No.
All righty. So we'll be in touch, and then hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.